Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Table Talk. I'm your host, Jake Combs, and tonight we are opening up the Kill Team Into the Dark box set, as well as taking a look at the annual for 2022 for Kill Team. Almost called it a compendium, which is why I had to take a look because I felt like that was wrong. So we're going to go ahead and set this aside. We're going to look at this one last. Both of these items are currently available for pre-order as of the date of this video airing. Date of recording, of course, is not the case for obvious, or just to make things clear, Games Workshop did send us these items in advance for the purpose of this video, and we do really appreciate them doing so. Allows us to have a little bit more time to actually review the miniatures, review the content, work on our articles, as well as do these videos for you guys to check out. Now we're going to go ahead and open it up. Now with Into the Dark, it takes place, and actually let me see if it says on the back. Yeah, that's right. I was going to butcher the name of the Space Hulk that this takes place on. So this is taking place on the Gallowdark, which is a Space Hulk that hasn't been seen for a very long time. I know one of the recent Warhammer community videos actually covered that a little bit. Basically, for those that don't know, a Space Hulk is more or less a hodgepodge of ancient ships and debris that have all kind of fused together through the warp, and they kind of pass in and out of reality kind of at will, and it's almost like there's some sort of like intelligence behind them. And this one has not been seen for quite a long time, and so the idea is that from the get-go, there are already multiple forces on board to deal with, and the Imperial Navy has sent a boarding party, which is our Imperium models that are in this kit, and they come face to face with a Kroot kill team. Now, the part that wasn't clear to me is whether the Kroot have also boarded or if they were there already. So definitely gonna have to look into the lore on that one. But from what I've seen already, literally I just opened the box, broke the seals right in front of you guys. So I've never opened this before this moment. But from the videos that I've seen with them talking about it, as well as on Warhammer Plus, they did a Kill Team battle report specifically using this box set. I mean, not literally this box set, but you know what I mean. And that was one of probably my favorite battle reports that we've seen that they've done, at least for Kill Team anyway. And it was absolutely fantastic. Had me so pumped to get ready to actually start building and painting and playing this set. Now, what's interesting is the setting to me, because typically we only interact and deal with Space Hulks in the game Space Hulk. And so with Into the Dark, I feel like this might be a precursor to kind of test interest in revitalizing Space Hulk. Again, pure speculation. I have no idea if that's really their intent or not. The nice thing with Kill Team in general is that you can have a new setting and create kill teams that otherwise would not be featured normally as far as models as a whole. Kind of similar to like what Warhammer Underworlds does, where you have a unique warband that would be found in the Age of Sigmar, but would not be plentiful enough to actually make sense as a full unit in a army. So in Warhammer Underworlds, you know, they're still doing their fight and they're still doing their stuff, but it still gives them a place to play and a place to interact. And so with that, you know, you have a lot more variety in not just the models, but, you know, the frequency of release. I mean, we've seen, I would say, close to 24 now, maybe a little less than that, different warbands that are just unique to Underworlds. And with Kill Team, we're going that direction as far as the unique aspect. I don't think that we're going to see that level of frequency. Now, also what I hope, and again, this is just a hope. Nobody said anything to me. I have no idea what GW truly has planned in the end, other than what they send me on the date that it arrives. And what I'm hoping we see is that Into the Dark is the start of something similar to what the Heart of Ghur did, or is doing, for Warcry, where we're going to start seeing more releases centered around this stage, or this arena of battle. And that way we continue to expand the Space Hulk and have more unique fighters and stuff. Like one thing they mentioned in the Warhammer community video for it is that you know, there are Chaos ships embedded here, so there are Chaos units that are going to be seen. There are Eldar or Eldari, probably a Drukhari as well. With it being a Space Hulk, and pretty much every time we've seen a Space Hulk prior, there have been some sort of Gene Stealers. So probably some Gene Stealers in there somewhere as well, if not other Tyranid units. But really just a huge opportunity to expand on this and make something really awesome, in my opinion. Again, I hope that's what they do. No idea if they're going to do it. But let's go ahead and get started with the models. Now, right off the bat, we have a couple terrain sprues. Now, these two are duplicates of each other. These are like some pieces of the bulkheads. You know, we have canisters. Looks like some oxygen tanks. We have some crates for munitions. Some vent pieces. Some gears and nozzles, and some tanks, possibly with Promethium, something like that. Just a ton of detail on these pieces. And I mean, honestly, like, the level of detail far outweighs that of most terrain that we see. Just a ton of stuff there. Then the next one, let's take a look. Okay. All right, so these two sprues are unique. So this one's mostly the wall pieces, as well as some of the pieces that connect them together. Now, it does look like the pieces will slide into place, so that way they're not going to be like wobbly while you're playing. But again, just an overwhelming amount of detail. I mean, my original assumption before I saw the Warhammer Plus video was that the terrain was going to be, you know, something more simple, like what we'd see in like the ruins from the Chalnath box. You know, a decent amount of detail, but it's still simple enough where you could easily just do a base coat and then a dry brush and you're done. You know, maybe add a little bit of wash here and there to kind of muddy it up type things. But, you know, it doesn't need to be, not as much attention is needed to that. And with this, with all of the unique features on each of these pieces, you're not going to have that ease of just a quick coat of paint and you're done. It's definitely going to take a lot more work and a lot more effort to get these pieces ready. And again, just tons of detail here. Like this one's got 2 panels of monitors, with a couple monitors actually missing from the display. And I've seen some really cool painted versions of those displays, specifically from the Warhammer Plus video. And then we got another one right here. This one is mostly doorways as well as another wall. Let's see. Okay, so that one was just kind of knocked a little loose. So it looks like those are the bulk of our terrain. And here we have a couple barricades as well as our measuring markers. I do love the fact that it's a hard plastic measuring marker, something that you can actually paint, versus just using a ruler for those types of things. Now it looks like, actually we'll set those aside. All right, so it looks like we actually still have another 3 sprues of terrain. So let's move that aside. Now this one appears to be a duplicate of this one right here. So we're going to set that one in the box. All right, here's the next one. And all right, there we go. All right, so this one is a duplicate as well. And then these 2 are also duplicates. Okay. So I've already gone through those. So that's a ton of terrain right here. I mean, not including the duplicates, right here I have 4 full massive sprues full of detail. We have 4 duplicate pieces. Gives us 8 massive sprues just full. Like almost every square inch of that is covered in terrain and with a lot of detail. So, you have really anyone that gets this box is going to have a large backlog to work on to get this up to where you want it to be. So now we're going to look at the sprues for the units and separate them out. Okay. So we have 1 full sprue as well as 1 half sprue for the Kroot. Now, seeing the Kroot, I've already seen them built and painted, and they look absolutely fantastic. There's a ton of detail, especially like on the Kroot kind of canine unit. You see a lot of the muscle, some scarring, the kind of quills coming off of them. Same with the actual Kroot themselves. These guys just have a ton of detail, and I love this kind of vulture that sits on top of the gun for one of the units. And then for the smaller sprue, looks like it's 3 models. Excuse me. Yeah, so 3 models, and with a lot of weapon options. So I don't know if all of these weapons go to just these 3, or if they're going to be meant where you can build them to have certain loadouts. So that's something we'll take a look at in the instruction booklet. And then we have a full sprue and about a quarter sprue. Now the quarter sprue, this one has some arms as well as some heads for the actual Imperial Navy models, but then it's got a lot of pieces for the robots that are being used. Excuse me, I'm still getting over bronchitis. A ton of detail on those guys. Now, with the actual Imperial Navy spree, the main one, looking at it, both halves are completely unique from each other. Now, what I was hoping was to have several units with these kind of riot shields, because visually, I love the look of those guys. Now, of course, you can take, like the kind of riot shields from what are those guys called from Necromunda, like the Palatine Enforcers, and kind of use those to add on there, assuming that it's an upgrade item that you can use for your guys. Maybe do a little kit bashing there with those guys. These guys, they've got a ton of detail on them, and what I love about them is the fact that for the most part, there's really been no Imperial Navy models as far as the characters or the people themselves. With Battlefleet Gothic, we had the ships covered, and here we have our insert. It's the same on both sides. Set that aside. But with the Imperial Navy, it's a lot of unique models that really have never been done before, other than a few that came along with Rogue Trader for the previous edition of Kill Team, if I remember correctly. Alright, so we have our bases. We have our orange dice. We have our pack of cards. Set those aside. We have our books. So we have the core rule book for the current edition of Kill Team, as well as the Into the Dark rule book. So go ahead and break that seal. Now, one thing I liked about this box, which I forgot to mention when I was first getting started, is that it wasn't wrapped in plastic as a whole. I'm hoping that this continues to be a trend that we see, just to, one, eliminate plastic waste that we have, because our hobby already, it has a ton of it, just in the sprues alone. I know in some regions, the sprues themselves are recyclable. From what everybody tells me, in my city they are as well. So I've been throwing them in my recycle bin. So at least, hopefully, those are being recycled. But I would recommend looking to see if there's a local area where you can recycle them, if your immediate area does not. We're not going to go through the core book because nothing's really changed there since the previous releases of it came out. Before we look at the Into the Dark book, we have our token sheet. Not noticing anything different there. We have our assembly guide. Now what we're going to be looking through right here real quick is to see if there's models that have optional builds, and immediately we see that there are. Let's see. And actually it looks like almost every model has optional builds, so you can actually modify them. Like the Kroot Tracker that has the bird can also be a Kroot Stalker. So just with the variety that you have in these models, I definitely would recommend getting a second box of each of these kill teams when they release them separately. Now, of course, if you want to expand on it and have a much bigger Space Hulk terrain, which is something I would love to have and do, just getting a second one of these boxes would do you wonders. But I love the multi-tone assembly instructions like they have. You know, we've seen it before, and I say it every time. It is something that I think is a great touch. Makes the assembly much easier to follow when you can see exactly where the piece ended up and easily defined, so that way when you're adding your next piece, you know, you can see, oh, I'm supposed to turn it this way or that way, and things like that. Now, before, when this was first announced, what I was hoping we would see is kind of like the Zone Mortalis tiles. Instead of a cardboard board. Now, the plus side to doing the board is, one, you have all of this detail that looks fantastic without having to paint it all up. And everything's kind of set into grids, which is really good for for setting it up as far as the game is concerned. All right, nice. So in previous games where cards like these were wrapped together, when we got it open, the cards that were inside were also wrapped. This time, that's not the case. All right, let's see if we can get these out of there without tearing anything, because it is packed tight. There we go. Okay. All right, so can't remember exactly what these cards are called, but for the most part, they look like they're all different tack ops that you can do, and you also have these kind of dividers to assign tack op 1, 2, and 3, and we'll just pick one at random to read. Let's see, central control, security. You can reveal this tack op in the target reveal step of any turning point at the end of any turning point if the total APL of the friendly operatives within blue of the center of the kill zone is greater than that of enemy operatives. You score 1 victory point. If you achieve the first condition at the end of any subsequent turning points, you score 1 victory point. So that one right there is just a way to kind of help maximize your total points that you're getting. All right, and then let's look at plant signal beacon. You must reveal its tack op when a friendly operative performs the plant signal beacon action at the end of the battle. If your signal beacon token is within the pentagon of your opponent's drop zone, you score 2 victory points. Once per battle, a friendly operative can perform the following action. Place a signal beacon token within the black triangle of this operative. An operative cannot perform this action while within the white circle of enemy operatives. And if any enemy operatives finish a move within triangle of the center of your signal beacon token and more than the circle from friendly operatives, remove that signal beacon token. So for those that aren't very familiar with the game, the different symbols that I was referring to are actually on the measuring pieces. And so of the 3 sides, you have, or 3 of the 4 sides, you have these symbols on there to represent exactly what they are. And I'm pretty sure this is more of the same. Get in there. so this is, so we have challenges, some more tac ops, it looks like. Now what's interesting is neither of these had listed, like which cards go with which team. All right, now open up the book. Got quite a bit of fluff in here. All right, but that pretty much ends on page 18, where you start building your kill team, and each of those models needs to start with a name. And then we get resume. We resume the lore, and then the actual building looks like gets started on page 32, where we then go into the rules. And then the actual stats of the different units. And then we do the same thing with the Kroot, obviously. Have a rare equipment section, requisitions, and then we go into the actual the setup of the Gallowdark, as well as specific rules for fighting there. Then we go into our gallery, a guide on setting up the terrain, and it actually shows you painted versions of each of the pieces, labels them individually, so that way you can see how you're assembling it and making sure you're doing it correctly. And then we go into our actual missions. And then we actually have an expedition map. All right, nearing the end of those. And then lastly, we go into our narrative data slate information that you can copy, as well as your narrative data cards to do the same thing. So definitely really looking forward to actually getting that in there, building this box, and getting started on our first game of Into the Dark. Like I said, I do suspect that they will be using this as a precursor to seeing if they will come out with a new version of Space Hulk. And so I suspect that the better this does, the more likely that might happen. But definitely recommend, at the very least, if you're not going to give this edition or this release of the game a shot, then I would recommend going through and at the very least watching the Kill Team on Warhammer Plus, or sorry, the Kill Team Battle Report on Warhammer Plus. It really makes this box set stand out, and so that way you can see just how great it really is, as well as how different a game of Kill Team feels in this environment versus just a normal tabletop environment. So definitely some really cool stuff. Again, highly recommend checking it out. Now let's take a look at those models. All right, so this is the first half of the Imperial Navy Breachers crew. And then this is the one with the kind of robot that assists them. This is the half sprue for the Kroot. And then our full sprue, which is actually upside down. Like I said, just a ton of detail, especially on the bird right here. Just a lot of great detail on these guys. Gives them a lot of personality. Set those aside. All right, so here's the first of the actual wall or bulkhead terrain. And again, just so much detail on these. It is absolutely impressive. And then this sprue, by far the most personality out of all of them. All right, so now that we're back, I hope you guys like those. Again, I think that the models look fantastic. I love all the detail on not just the actual units, but on the terrain. And I mean, looking at everything there, it really feels like this is, once, something glorious technology-wise. And, there just may be some archaeotech to be discovered there to take back to, your home bases to further that cause. And definitely looking forward to again getting in there, playing games of this, and really seeing what it's all about and getting a feel for it. But so far, out of all the environments, just on the environment alone, nothing to do with the units that came with it, this is definitely my favorite. Kill Team, or sorry, not Kill Team, but Space Hulk itself has always been a IP that I've really enjoyed. And the last edition that they came out with, I never actually got the chance to play. So this is kind of scratching that itch a little bit. But definitely seeing it in person makes me really want to still try to get a hold of a copy of that edition. And all right, now it's time to look at the annual. Obviously I had to cut away to show you guys the sprues and then kind of clear up the area to make room. But here we have the Kill Team Annual for 2022. Right off the bat, looking at the cover, I do see the Gellerpox infected, the Rogue Trader models. I do see some Harlequins, as well as some Chaos stuff, and it looks like maybe some Astra. What is it? Astra Mechanicum. And then one I'm guessing is Genestealer Cult, just on the cover. And then, so it does start off with a multiplayer mission pack, which allows either 3 or 4 players. So if you're kind of building up to a bigger battle, then it sets you up for that and gives you several missions. We do have the Shadow Operations Last Stand mission pack, which does have 3 different missions. And then setting the final stages. It's kind of tips and tricks for how to set some of them up for their overall appearance. There's a Centuries mission pack, which gives 6 missions. And then Studio Kill Teams Showcase, basically kill teams that the studio has made themselves. And I love when they include things like this in there, just so you can see, some of the kit bashes, some of the paint schemes, things like that. And then we go into the actual kill teams themselves. So the first one is the Elucidian Starstrider kill teams, which is from Rogue Trader. And now we do have one of my cats. I'm blocking the way. Come here, boy. All right. Hello. All right. So here they are right here. Helps you come up with names for the models. Then we go into their attack ops, abilities, then their actual models themselves and their stats. And equipment and all that. Spec Ops rules. Then we go into the Gellerpox Infected, which personally I have always wanted to get a hold of a box of these. I'm hoping that with the annual, we see re-releases of those 2 that I just mentioned. Because I don't necessarily need the Rogue Trader box set, but I do really want those 2 kill teams. So I really hope that they re-release them. And so it goes through the same stuff with each of them. There's the stats for some of them. Next one is Warp Coven kill teams. So it looks like some Thousand Suns. It includes their psychic powers. And then of course all the models. In there you'll find some Zangors, which recently we did that unboxing of Arcane Cataclysm. Which did feature some of these models in there, so we're already partway there. The Hunter Clade kill teams. So it does look like Mechanicum. Let's see. So it includes a lot of Skitaris and Sicarians. Then we have the Wormblade kill teams, which proves my guess correct. We do have some Genestealer cults. And then the Void Dancer troops kill team for the Eldari. Let's see what all they include. So we have the lead player Harlequin, Death Jester, player Shadowseer. So only a couple models with this one. But a lot of really cool stuff in here. If you play any of those armies, would highly recommend picking this up. If you plan on playing them eventually, same thing. But if this is one of those things that you want for the lore, this is a great way to expand on that as well. But if you're looking for how to bring a more obscure army into Kill Team, that's not covered in here, not covered in the main rules or any of the previous box sets that come out for this edition, then, or even in White Dwarf, then really you're going to have to wait on those to be added later. But if that's all you're looking for, then obviously you would not want to get this book, just because this is specific to these 6 warbands, or sorry, kill teams. But a lot of cool stuff in here. Highly recommend for anyone that is a avid kill team player. Like I always say about the codices or the battle tomes, it's best to get them and then read up on them and learn what your enemies will be bringing to the fight, so that way you can learn how to counteract it. In the meantime, definitely looking forward to building these. Again, thank you to Games Workshop for sharing these with us. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of your support over the years. And just want to remind everybody that if you would please subscribe to our channel. The more subscribers we get, basically we need to get to 1,000 in order to be able to do the custom URL. But at the end of the day, at the very least, you guys are watching it, and again, we really appreciate it. And if you do feel the need to comment, please do. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have, as well as if you have questions about painting or anything like that, as far as what maybe I would use in a recipe to achieve a certain color, something like that. Always willing to help out there. But other than that, thank you guys for watching as always, and I hope you have a great night.